Fiona Place is our second speaker. She has always been interested in women, language, and identity. She's the author of Cardboard, A Woman Left for Dead, a prose poetry prize-winning novel about one woman's life-threatening eating disorder and eventual hard-won recovery. She's also the author of The Portrait of the Artist's Mother, Dignity, Creativity and Disability, a memoir essay about raising her son with Down syndrome, who's become a successful visual artist. Her poetry collection, Corridor Offerings, was shortlisted for 5 Islands Poetry Manuscript Prize in 2022. She's also worked as a financial commentator for major newspapers. Follow Fiona, I say. Today, she combines motherhood with her work as a writer and an advocate for people with intellectual disabilities. Her essays appear in peer-reviewed journals. This is Fiona's book. So now we go on to Fiona Place, who's going to talk about various things, which I mentioned before. Thank you, Fiona.
Well, I'm going to present a paper rather than talk off the cuff, because I'm better at doing that rather than talking off the cuff like Sandy. So I want to talk about my book, Portrait of the Artist's Mother, Dignity, Creativity and Disability. It's a memoir and an examination of the politics of disability. I describe the pressure I was placed under to undergo screening during pregnancy and the traumatic assumptions others made that a child with Down syndrome should not live. In the book, I describe the more of parenting a child with a disability and the difficulties of asking for support without others believing your child is a burden to your family and the wider community. Tonight, I will describe how my story began, how prenatal testing shapes our cultural understandings of pregnancy and disability. There are days when having a child with Down syndrome can mean losing all hope of being an ordinary mother, a mother with run-of-the-mill concerns, a mother of run-of-the-mill routines. I know, I've had such days. I've also found that sharing these feelings with other mothers, even those who have a child with a disability, isn't always easy or straightforward. In part, I believe my difficulty sharing my experience with mothers is because the motherhood issues surrounding the birth of a child with Down syndrome are qualitatively different to those experienced by mothers who give birth to children with other disabilities such as autism or cerebral palsy. The mother who has a child with autism or cerebral palsy is usually viewed as a victim, as having had no choice, of life having dealt her a cruel blow. There are, after all, no prenatal tests that can currently pick up these defects, as they're called. That she may not see herself as a victim or her child as a victim often goes unreported. Instead, in the eyes of the popular media, to give birth to a child with a disability is seen as a personal tragedy, a story of suffering and endurance. In other words, disability is to be avoided if at all possible, and women are expected to take advantage of the advances in reproductive medicine to choose a genetically correct pregnancy, thus improving their lives and the lives of their offspring. Within this context, it is not surprising then that the mother of a child with Down syndrome is likely to have seen as having brought the suffering on herself, of having had choices, tests such as the NIPT, amniocentesis and CVS, but of having failed to take control, failed to prevent the suffering of her child. But how informative are tests such as pre-implantation diagnosis? How meaningful? More importantly, how safe is it to assume lives are being improved? Could it be, for example, that some lives are now harder rather than easier? As one mother who has grappled with the issues surrounding prenatal testing and disability, I would like to share with you our family's experience and hopefully illuminate some of the more complex and troubling issues these technological advances have the capacity to create. Fraser's pregnancy. I fell pregnant with Fraser in 1995 at the age of 37. I was already the mother of a 15-month-year-old and just as I had his pregnancy, I took the routine blood test screen for chromosomal abnormalities at 16 weeks. It showed I was at high risk of having a child with Down syndrome. However, as I'd had a similarly high risk reading in my first pregnancy, I wasn't particularly worried. The risk with Fraser appeared slightly higher, but other than knowing we would have to find time to see the genetic counsellor again, I didn't dwell on it. This time, though, for some reason, the expert's tone was different. This time, my husband Christopher and I could feel the high-octane spiel, feel the pressure pound through our bodies, pulsate through our veins. We should take the test. We should take the test. We should take the test. We were we not, intelligent, well-educated and responsible human beings. Surely we could understand the need to invade, the need to extract a sample of amniotic fluid. Surely there were no ifs or buts this time. Surely we realised we had been very lucky with our first pregnancy. Surely we understood the need for certainty, for reliable and accurate information this time. We did and we didn't. We knew, for example, that even if we ruled out the possibility of Down syndrome, there was no guarantee that our baby would be normal, that the majority of mothers who give birth to a child with an intellectual disability will have received perfectly normal, utterly reassuring amniocentesis results. They will have put themselves at risk and will have been rewarded with good results. They will have been expecting a baby they could cherish, a baby they could be proud of, a baby they could love. Our decision. We were strongly aware the drive to have a normal child was expected of us, that we were making a decision at a time when social and economic imperatives dictated that we should want the best partner, the best career, the best house, the best baby. I had already agreed to a blood test and an ultrasound, so why not an amniocentesis? Why stop now? Why not proceed with a test most women over the age of 35 consider essential? What was wrong with me? Put simply, the test didn't engage me. It seemed too specific, too focused. Plus, there were also a far larger obstacle. I knew if I agreed to the test and the words chromosomal disorder were to appear, a certain set of assumptions and an as yet unspoken trajectory would swiftly emerge, and I wasn't sure I'd be able to follow its course. Beyond the test. I knew if the results came back positive, I would be expected to terminate immediately, to abort my affected fetus. That before the procedure, as it would be referred to, the staff would want to reassure me, want to comfort me, and in soothing voices tell me that yes, of course this procedure is in your best interests. You and your baby should be not made to suffer, not now or ever. You're doing the right thing, they would reassure me. You are. But what would be left unsaid would be the unavoidable realities of termination. On the elected day, during what would be this 22nd week of my pregnancy, I would have to consent to the induction of labour. Simultaneously, I would also be expected to consent to a fetal intracardiac injection of potassium chloride to ensure the delivery of a dead baby. I would be advised to give birth to a dead baby because it would be considered better if I didn't hear the baby cry, better if I didn't see the tiny creature breathe or try to breathe. The staff would also prefer I consent, would prefer I minimised everyone else's distress. Then after the event, I would be left alone to my own devices, left alone with no baby. I would be promised a tiny set of foot and handprints as a memento of my once vibrant pregnancy, and expected to be grateful, to be thankful for the successful elimination of a pending disaster. But while I knew the staff would mean well, would believe they were doing the right thing for me, I knew it wasn't the road for me, that I just couldn't do it. I couldn't understand why a baby with Down syndrome was something to be avoided at all costs, while a baby who was born prematurely and likely to emerge from the labour-intensive incubator process with severe lifelong disabilities was cherished, welcomed and saved no matter what the expense. Other than being normal to begin with, where was the difference? Perhaps it was the possibility the premature baby might emerge unscathed, that hope remained, that there was a real possibility the intense and expensive process of saving the baby might not cause any damage. whereas with Down syndrome, the damage was done, the damage was known. After the birth, we knew immediately Fraser had Down syndrome. He was floppy, had almond-shaped eyes and low-set ears, plus the only thing the midwife said was, "Did you have an amniocentesis?" There were no congratulations. Christopher and I awaited the arrival of the paediatrician without the benefits of privacy, only able to guess what the other was thinking. The paediatrician arrived, and it was immediately he perceived our birth outcome a disaster. "You're both professionals," he said. "You both know what we are thinking." But he couldn't bring himself to say the words Down syndrome, and instead went on about the need for chromosomal testing and the likelihood of a positive result. The gist, the message about our son, was while he would walk, might even talk, he would never cook, never understand danger, and never live independently. Never, never, never. Fraser was only an hour old and he'd already been judged, already been found wanting. Creating Fraser's cultural identity. The staff wanted me to accept his diagnosis and prognosis. I, on the other hand, wanted to demedicalise the way in which his existence was being shaped. I didn't want to know right then and there about the disability services to which I would be entitled, the possible medical complications I might face. And in a small attempt to create a different kind of space, a social space that could afford my son an identity that wasn't focused on his genetic makeup, I requested it not be assumed by the staff that he had Down syndrome until the results of the blood tests were known, knowing full well they wouldn't be available until I left hospital. Over the next few days, Fraser had to spend some time in the neonatal intensive care unit because of an unrelated medical problem. His initial redness turning out to be the symptom of polycythemia, too many red blood cells. And in many ways this helped me to become his mother, to concentrate on looking after him in the same way you would any sick baby. Yet while I was deeply confident, I was also deeply ashamed. Deeply ashamed I'd given birth to a baby with a flaw, a defect, and processing the emotions was made doubly difficult because I felt many people thought I should have had prenatal testing, that it was my choice to have Fraser and therefore my fault, my problem. Fortunately, however, these feelings of dejection were equally matched by a passionate belief he belonged in our family, and that if he could belong and be included in our lives, then there was no reason why he couldn't be included in the lives of others. Now 28, Fraser can live in supported accommodation, attend a day program, and enjoy leisure activities such as going for a walk, bowling, or going to the movies. He also volunteers at Indigrow, an Indigenous-run nursery, has had a career as an artist, winning the Canberra Art Prize in 2015, and had a solo art exhibition in Sydney at the Red Leaf Gallery. In other words, his life is meaningful and productive, a life to be proud of.
Thank you, Fiona. And the painting on the front of Fiona's book is by Fraser, and you can see many of his paintings online. So thanks very, very much for that.